We're almost a month into the 2023 edition of the Big Ten football season. We're starting to get educated a little bit. We're starting to learn some things of our beloved Big Ten football season. Week 4, we really learned a lot in terms of who's good, who needs to get better. Let's react to some of the big happenings around the Big Ten in week number 4.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
The Big Ten may very well be the best defensive conference in all of college football, and that's where I want to start. The teams that won the biggest games in prime time did it with defense. I want to start first with the Penn State Nittany Lions. Now, their win over Iowa doesn't put them up multiple rungs on a ladder because they shut out the Iowa Hawkeyes. That doesn't necessarily change my opinion of where Penn State was before this. It's not one of those performances that you say, hey, look at that. Now I think they're this much better. No, that's not what this performance was against Iowa. We know about the whiteout. We know about the rain. We know about Penn State's talent, and we know what Iowa was kind of dealing with and maybe how shorthanded they were with some of those running backs, and Luke Lachey were out in that game. But I just want to really appreciate what Penn State is doing on the defensive side of the football. They have it at all three levels. They have it on the defensive line with Adisa Isaac and Chop Robinson coming off the edge. They have it at linebacker with Curtis Jacobs and Abdul Carter. They have maybe one of the best corner tandems in the country in Kalen King and Johnny Dixon. You know, I saw a list of PFF defensive backs highest rated. Kalen King wasn't on there because he cuts that half of the field off. It's amazing, right? He's got that Revis Island type of mindset to him as well. Johnny Dixon, boy, you put those guys together, and that's particularly impressive because of losing Joey Porter Jr. and losing Jair Brown, two great defensive backs, and Manny Diaz still has this defense playing at an elite level. Boy, Manny Diaz, he's made many stops along his college football coaching journey, but man, he's probably going to get looks as a head coach once again because of what he's done at Penn State. But his role, I believe, where he is best in college football is building a top-tier defense as a defensive coordinator. This defense, I believe, has progressed to the level that they are because of Manny Diaz. Now, he's not the only reason, right? There's great players all across this defense, but Manny Diaz and his mindset and his development, what he's been able to do with this defensive unit is just spectacular. You know, there's not a lot of teams that are going to be able to get a lot of yards and move the ball on Penn State at the remainder of their schedule. You look outside of Michigan and outside of Ohio State, who can score 20 points on them? Maybe Maryland? I don't even know about that. This is a Penn State defense this is a championship defense. The old saying, defense wins championships. Penn State is in that discussion, not only at the Big Ten level, but at the national level because of defense. I think the offense, right, of course, they've got an upgrade at quarterback, and we know what they have at running back and all these things. Offense is good. Defense is great. That's how I believe things are going with Penn State. Look, it is a great combination. I think the defense makes things better on offense. I think the improved play at quarterback position kind of helps out the defense a little bit. It's a perfect marriage right now in Happy Valley. Everybody smiles in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. Let's talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes as well. This was a Notre Dame offense that was averaging around 40-some points per game coming into this thing. What Ohio State was able to do coming right out the gate in the first half was impressive. I know Sam Hartman, Audric Estime in the run game got it going a little bit more as this game progressed. But still, what Ohio State did in the end, making key stops in short yardage situations, this is something, I think I kind of said it going into this game between the Irish and the Buckeyes. I think we're going to learn a lot about a lot of teams. Was Notre Dame's offense as explosive as they put on film so far? Is Ohio State's defense as good as they put on film? And Ohio State maybe won that battle. Well, we learned that Ohio State's defense from top to bottom is really, really good. Now, we know about the usual suspects for the Buckeyes. We know about JT Tuimoloau. We know about Tommy Eichenberg. We know about Michael Hall Jr. and Zach Sawyer and some great players on the front seven. But a vet, Tylik Williams, is one guy that I really thought played really well against Notre Dame. And I think he's going to be in the fold and just another part of this front seven at Ohio State that's going to be continuing to really set the tone for where the Buckeyes can go in this season and where the Buckeyes can go in the future. Because historically, a Jim Knowles defense pops in year number 2. And this might be that year, well, it is year number 2, and this might be the unit that could carry Ohio State to a Big Ten championship. Maybe could carry Ohio State to a national championship. We know about their offense. And Kyle McCord, don't get me wrong, he made big throws in big spots, but he's not Justin Fields. He's not CJ Stroud. I don't know if this offense is going to have that explosion that we're used to seeing at Ohio State. I think the defense is going to be a much bigger part to the success of the Ohio State Buckeyes than we've seen in years past. All right, let's move over to Lincoln, Nebraska. Yes, it's time to talk about the Big Ten West right now. I believe Heinrich Haarberg, at this very moment in time, gives the Nebraska Cornhuskers a better chance to win football games than Jeff Sims. Let's dive into it just a little bit. We all know what happened with Jeff Sims. We all know those first 2 games coming up just a little bit short against Minnesota, and then what happened with the turnovers against Colorado as well. Heinrich Haarberg has shown, I know it's Northern Illinois, I know it's Louisiana Tech, but Heinrich Haarberg has showed so far that he can protect the football, and he adds an added element in the run game and the way they've kind of shifted their offense to maybe this option tag to the days of old. I'm sure the Husker fans love seeing that triple option once again, at least more of the triple option once again with Heinrich Haarberg. Look, does he provide a threat down the field in the pass game? No, he doesn't provide a great threat throwing the ball, but maybe Nebraska needs to mix things up a little bit in the run game, right? They're down Ramir Johnson. They're down Gabe Irvin Jr. for the season, so they need some depth. They need some depth, and maybe doing what they do and what they've done these past 2 weeks with Heinrich Haarberg and getting him involved a little bit more in the run game, he's been a home run threat. Maybe the biggest home run threat Nebraska has had so far on offense, running the ball, passing the ball, whatever. Heinrich Haarberg has been the big play. Man, who would have thought that coming into this season? We knew he was going to be involved in some packages, but I thought that this offense, look, it hasn't been the absolute best, but I thought this offense has played a little bit better with Heinrich Haarberg because you need to possess the ball. You need the ball in your hands. You just can't keep giving the ball away because you need to protect your defense as well. This is a fantastic defense. It's one of the best defenses in the Big Ten right now. I think without question it's a top 5 defense in this conference, in a conference that is loaded with really good defenses as well. You can't have a guy in Jeff Sims that continues to turn the football over and puts your defense in very difficult spots. That's why Heinrich Haarberg might give you a better chance to win going forward. Look, I know you got Michigan, and you're probably going to take it on the chin in that one. But you look at the Big Ten West right now. You've lost one Big Ten West football game. If you build a little bit more confidence and a little bit more momentum with Heinrich Haarberg the next month or so, you get down to the last month of the season in November when you play teams like a Wisconsin, when you play teams like an Iowa, when you play the better teams in the Big Ten West, you'll be ready for it. Heinrich Haarberg will be ready for that situation. Look, as crazy it might seem, and we're going to be talking about the craziness of the Big Ten West here in a little bit, Nebraska contending for this thing, considering what their defense is doing, if they can get things going with Heinrich a little bit in this run game, crazier things, stranger things have happened. That's all I got to say about that. Sticking inside the Big Ten West, let's talk about the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And I want to make this clear, and the Northwestern Wildcats. That's where I want to start off. What a huge win for David Braun. if he has his eyes on becoming the permanent head coach in Evanston, this was a big step in that direction for David Braun. But you got to give credit to the Wildcats. You got to give credit to Ben Bryant as well. What a huge upgrade. Probably maybe the biggest upgrade in the Big Ten at the quarterback position this year. What was going from whatever they had last year to Ben Bryant. It was just flat out carving up that Minnesota defense late in this game. This is not a terrible, putrid Northwestern team like you saw from last season. This is a Northwestern team, especially when you factor in what the Big Ten West is looking like right now. You look at games in the future, maybe against a Purdue, maybe even in Illinois at the end of the year, maybe in Nebraska, where Northwestern, now it looked like those teams could notch that game as an easy win. I don't think that's the case anymore. So you got to give credit where credit is due for the Northwestern Wildcats. They made plays. They had the energy. They had the juice down the stretch when Minnesota did not. Let's talk about the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Are they in trouble? The first 3 quarters of this game, Minnesota was doing what I really expected the Gophers to do. Darius Taylor was pounding the rock, and he is that guy right now in this Minnesota run game. Ethan Kaliakmanis, although he didn't throw the ball a ton in this game, when he did put it in the air for the most part, he was on target. He was making good decisions. He was very efficient in the passing game with the football, maybe aside from that Brevin Span Ford throw in overtime, which maybe could have won the football game for Minnesota, depending on what Northwestern did on the other side. Who knows if they get a touchdown? Who knows how play calling shifts at that point for the Wildcats. But once we got to the fourth quarter, like I said, Northwestern had the juice. Northwestern had the energy. And Minnesota was just playing this thing. They just wanted to run the clock down, and they got ultra conservative. They did not have the killer instinct to put the game away. All they needed was a field goal. And this was a Minnesota victory. And yet, not very creative in play calling. This team just didn't have it. And they just, they didn't make turnovers or they didn't make a ton of stupid mistakes. They just were like, okay, yep, a couple minutes off the clock, punt, a couple minutes off the clock, punt. There just was no sense of urgency for Minnesota to put this game away. And Northwestern realized that and says, we're going to take it. And they made every single play when Minnesota didn't. Okay, what's the future for the Gophers right now? Okay, you got Louisiana next week. This is a decent Louisiana team. If the Ragin' Cajuns play with Minnesota, and this is a one-score game, or even a, God forbid, a Minnesota loss, that's, I think, when we're starting to realize some trouble. This Northwestern game is certainly a wake-up call. That's how I'm going to categorize it right now. A wake-up call for Fleck and the Maroon and Gold of Minnesota. But if you don't play well against Louisiana at home, or you lose, then it's maybe time, it's red alert time, so to speak, in Minnesota. But let's say you beat the Ragin' Cajuns, and then you got Michigan at home, at Iowa after that. Those are obviously Michigan. You're not going to win that game. You look at the game on the road against Minnesota, at Iowa, considering how the Gophers are offensively right now, and I think Iowa's still a great defense, and I know Iowa's playing like they are on offense right now, but that's still going on the road to Kinnick to play Iowa for Minnesota. That's a tough one for me. That would put the Gophers at 3-4. You got Ohio State still on the schedule. You got Wisconsin still on the schedule. Bowl, you got to beat Louisiana. That's all I got to say. But there could be some bowl games in jeopardy once again for PJ Fleck and the Gophers. But you have to come out strong. Remember, PJ Fleck, through the course of his career, remember 2019, he beat FCS South Dakota State only by 7 to start the season. Went to overtime against Fresno State. Georgia Southern at that time was only 5 years into FBS, and you barely beat him as well. That was the 2019 team, probably the best Gopher team of the PJ Fleck era. And then the Bowling Green game, we all know about that. So PJ Fleck has this history of playing close games against inferior opponents at the bank. Will this happen again? I got a weird feeling against this game, with this game against the Ragin' Cajuns. Minnesota, I believe, desperately needs Chris Autman-Bell back. They don't have playmakers at wide receiver, and I think that's really affecting this offense. Right now, I think they're glad that they found Darius Taylor. If they didn't find Darius and that run game really wasn't there, I think that'd be even more of a problem. But Daniel Jackson's good. I don't think he's a number one target. I don't think Lemeki Brockington, Corey Crooms, Elijah Spencer, I don't think those guys are keeping defensive coordinators up at night. They need a playmaker in this passing offense to be more of a threat down the field. Brevin Spanford hasn't really gotten involved, and he's not going to be that playmaker down the field at the tight end position where you can continuously rely on him. He's a great red zone threat for Minnesota, but he's not a number one guy at tight end. They need Chris Autman-Bell back, and that could give this Minnesota offense a boost if and when that happens. I want to close this thing out talking about the Big Ten West right now. Man, oh boy, good riddance, I guess. This thing is going to seismically shift each and every single week. I think it's going to be a lot like last year, where, hey, you might get a game or maybe 2 games in a row where you kind of feel you have a good idea of where a team's going. And then the next week, it's going to completely change. I think that's what you're going to see out of the Big Ten West so far. It looks like Wisconsin is probably the best team in the Big Ten West. But now you're down Chez Mellusi. And he was a huge part of your run game. Braylon Allen is going to have to step up big time. How is he going to fit in this offense? I think that game against Purdue showed that he's going to be just fine in this rushing offense. I'm just very curious to see now how, if that run game really changes at all. I think Tanner Mordecai is probably the best quarterback in the Big Ten West right now. Luke Altmaier and Hudson Card are there as well. When I look at Illinois, I see a team that's maybe just going to hang around, and Luke Altmaier is going to keep them in games and maybe win a game and maybe flip a game here, and they're just going to stay in the race. I just have a feeling about that. But and then you kind of look, I talked about Nebraska already. Purdue is struggling defensively. I think they're going to continue to struggle. Northwestern, I think, with that win against Minnesota, is a team that people should keep an eye on. This is a Big Ten West that is completely wide open right now. It's going to be fun to watch. And I hope if we see all these teams meddling in mediocrity, I hope one team like a Wisconsin or an Iowa can step above the rest. But like Wisconsin's next game is against Rutgers and Madison, and I don't think that's going to be very easy for the Badgers. So get ready for wildness, get ready for craziness in the Big Ten West, is what I'm trying to say. It was a fun week of Week 4 football. I want to hear your thoughts on everything Week 4, and as we look ahead to week number 5 in the comments below, I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.